Like, the music's great, but then again, the music's great in all of these films, and I almost feel like you could do a separate tier list just ranking the music.
Okay. This was probably the hardest list I've had to do. I mean, all of these movies have really great music, even the ones I hate. So yeah, this was probably one of the hardest lists I've ever had to create, except for the last spot, which goes to Tarzan, and it's not even close. On the surface, the lyrics of these songs actually do work. Two Worlds, One Family is obvious, and Stranger Like Me is also pretty good. The lyrics are not the problem. The problem is that they're all sung by a third-party narrator, not someone we see in the movie, just some guy in the background we've never met. So when Phil Collins sings Two Worlds, he's not talking about himself, right? He's supposed to be talking about Tarzan, right? So then why isn't Tarzan singing his own song? How are we supposed to know how Tarzan feels emotionally? All we get are lyrics, but lyrics are only one piece of the puzzle. The emotion and tone of the singer matter just as much as the lyrics. Because without the emotion and tone, we get super bland phrases like, Two worlds, one family. Get it? Because he has his human world and his gorilla world. Look at any other song from the Renaissance. Reflection? We get to hear the somber, delicate, beautiful voice of Mulan express how she just can't fit in. Just can't wait to be king? We get to hear the childlike voice of Simba express his ego of wanting to be king. Be our guest? We get to hear the excitement of all the flatware because they finally have guests. Tarzan never achieves these moments because none of the characters ever express their desires. We're just told what their desires are through God, so the emotion of each song is extremely similar. Phil Collins himself can't express these emotions because that would be really weird. Imagine having another person express your emotions for you. Tarzan is just musically broken. Regardless of whether you think Phil Collins is the best or the worst singer in the world, Tarzan's use of his songs are simply awful. Man, this is gonna be a really hard list to get through. It pains me to put a movie with such great songs this low on the list, but compared to the other movies, it's hard for me to put it higher. Mulan is about 50 times better than Tarzan and really close to the high ones coming up, but I personally don't find this soundtrack to be as incredible as some of the other ones. The first problem you're gonna run into with this movie is that there's not really enough songs. I counted 4 songs in the entire movie, which is kind of not good enough, but you know, if they're all great, it can be excused. Unfortunately, they're not all great. None of them are awful, but there are duds. Honor to Us All is pretty bad, honestly. I've never liked it. It's not the worst thing ever, but these matchmakers do not have pleasant tones at first. They definitely get better as the song continues, but man, they were annoying. Some parts of this song are actually really strong, but there's no shortage of weird harmonies that kind of bring me out of it. When the 3 matchmakers sing together, they complement each other really well, but when this song has individual parts, it's actually pretty bad. Boys will gladly go to war for you. The song overall isn't terrible, but it's probably the worst song of the bunch. A Girl Worth Fighting For has the same problem. Individually, these guys have terrible voices, but the instruments are amazing. Whenever the instruments decide to be beautiful, that's when the song soars. Whenever the guys sing, it makes me want to turn it off. The other 2 are actually much better. I'll Make a Man Out of You is one of the most intense songs on the entire list. It was crucial that this song encapsulates the aggressive nature of war, the importance of defeating the Huns, and the masculine identity Mulan now bears. But my god does this song do it through the insane vocal performance of B.D. Wong, the great lyrics, and the urgency that's felt from defending China. Reflection also captures an incredible feeling of sadness as Mulan struggles to fit in, with its gorgeous orchestration and delicate nature. Overall, a really good soundtrack that provides a plethora of different genres, unlike some soundtracks I know of. The scores accompanying the songs are always great, and feel very different from Western music here, and I cannot commend it enough for that. Number 7 is where things got even harder for me, but I decided that The Little Mermaid should end up here. On the surface, this movie seems to have one of the best soundtracks. Every song is memorable, every song is catchy, but even though it's fun, there's nothing really compelling in any of these songs. Part of Your World only gets personal until the end, Poor Unfortunate Souls only gets personal to the end, Kiss the Girl only gets personal to the end. Most of these songs serve the plot, not the characters. It doesn't really have personal, magical, gorgeous songs. It's more like an undersea adventure soundtrack. In addition, I don't really find any of these songs super catchy. There aren't any duds, but there are songs that I wish were a bit stronger overall. Poor Unfortunate Souls is the only song I would actually consider great, with its showcase of a bombastic, evil character and a really fantastic over-the-top ending. The others are just kinda your standard, very good Disney songs. Kiss the Girl is definitely good, but it's a bit too slow and soft to leave a strong lasting impact until the ending. Part of Your World is the same way. It's catchy and nice, but it doesn't really hit top tier until we get to the sensational chorus. All of these songs are really good, but they don't hit the highs of some of the soundtracks on this list. Thankfully though, they don't hit the dreadful lows either. Beauty and the Beast is one of the most praised animated movies of all time, and probably one of the most praised elements is the music. Everyone loves to talk about Be Our Guest or Tale as Old as Time, but for me, the most exciting parts are the excellent character songs. Unlike The Little Mermaid, most of the songs in this film explore characters, making them a lot more interesting as a result. It is nice to have a song that moves the plot along, but I always find that it's a bit more interesting to explore characters' motivation. Why do they do what they do? How are they surviving in that climate? What are their schemes? The best songs are the ones who can move the plot along and give background character information at the same time. The opening with the misleading title of Belle is one of the best examples of this in the entire Renaissance. Much like Alexander Hamilton from My Favorite Thing Ever, Hamilton, it crams so much information in such a small period of time. In 4 minutes, it explores Belle's nature, Gaston's nature, the skeptical nature of the town, and moves the plot along as well as being extremely catchy. For all that to be captured in such a small amount of time is admirable, and it highlights the beauty of a musical number. The other songs, while not quite as great, still have some fantastic elements. Gaston is a ton of fun, and I love that the actor can be in character and still have a great voice. Be Our Guest, of course, is catchy, but also builds until you have this great chorus that's very fun to watch and hear. The visuals for all the songs in general are very good, but this one takes the cake for me. Beauty and the Beast definitely has a ton of catchy, memorable songs, but it's not my favorite. There's certainly more compelling soundtracks out there, even if the opening is still one of the best individually. Still, there are some really special gems in here, just like every soundtrack on this list whose name doesn't start with TA. Aladdin is very similar to Beauty and the Beast song-wise. I really like the songs, they're catchy and a lot of them are on my Disney playlist, but they're not super compelling. Not like some of the other Renaissance films are. But I will give Aladdin this. If you take this into account, this is an exceptional fun soundtrack. The songs with Robin Williams are obvious standouts. Friend Like Me is one of the most memorable songs in Disney history, and it's mostly due to Mrs. Doubtfire's killer performance as all-powerful Genie. He sings with such a wide range, from intensely powerful to showcase his limitless abilities, to French for no reason, I don't know why. Robin Williams is so great in his role that we don't even notice or care that his singing is actually pretty okay. This is why Will Smith's performance doesn't leave the same impact, because they're just auto-tuning him while he's trying to do his best Robin Williams impression instead of leaving his own impression. The animation also gets wild in this song, which is something I think they did really well in the remake. Things fly at you constantly while the singers sing about what's happening on screen. You can also see some similar patterns in Genie's other song, Prince Ali. I know I said in the Bronze Age video that Aladdin should have his own lyric to flesh out his character arc, which I still stand by the way, but the verses we do get are actually pretty great. Genie retains just as much energy as he had in Friend Like Me, but this time we get to see how Aladdin's greed and need for attention affects him, which is a starting point for the rest of the movie's themes. The other songs, while not quite as high energy, are not bad by any stretch. They're still pretty fun. Arabian Nights is a beautiful, somewhat alien introduction to this whole new world. Speaking of which, A Whole New World is orchestral beauty, wrapped with a nice little bow and packaged under the tree with the gift receipt in case they don't like it. That analogy got way out of hand. I'm so sorry. The Lion King is one of the most cinematic movies of all time, and I don't really know how else to explain it. It's just so grand. Nearly everything about this film's character arcs, animation, and emotional beats are absolutely fantastic. And one of the best things about it is its songs. There's so many delights to pick from the sensational Circle of Life to the carefree Hakuna Matata. I want to start with that one because I find it incredibly underrated. The way Hakuna Matata ties into Simba's character arc is fantastic, as he's shown a new way of life compared to the heavily ruled life in his childhood. This song's theme is literally, give up on trying to deal with your problems and just eat bugs for the rest of your life. Not to mention, musically, the song slaps, it's catchy. I love when Simba interrupts with this awesome jazz thingy. I love when they sing on the branch and Simba becomes older, and I love when the bugs fly off the plate and the music swells. Circle of Life is the obvious standout as an iconic, grand, and endlessly magical experience it is. There's not much more to say. It's the best song and everyone knows it's the best song. Be Prepared is also surprisingly memorable and sinister, showing off a villain's plan who actually does come together. Like, think about that for a second. Scar's plan actually works. Wow. It also moves the plot along and it shows off a character, which if we're being honest is probably the most important thing for a musical number to have, as previously mentioned. Just can't wait to be King falls into this category as well, and even though it's probably the weakest of the bunch, I still really enjoy it. It's still important to the narrative, even if it does feel the most like a generic pop song. The Lion King soundtrack is easily one of its best attributes, and even though I think that there are 3 coming up that are better, this is still a great soundtrack to the best overall package on this list. Somehow, Pocahontas' soundtrack is better than the Lion King's. I don't even know how that's possible. Just to be clear, I absolutely despise Pocahontas and I think that there are so many things wrong with it, but the soundtrack is definitely not one of those things. Revisiting some of these songs, I was really surprised to see just how compelling they were. I think the first time I watched this movie, I was just busy complaining about all the bad things that the movie had to notice the songs. Savages has such a militaristic mood to it, and demonstrates how misunderstanding can lead to bloodshed. Sure, there's the disgusting aspect of how this movie tries to even white colonizing, because the white people can't be the bad guys in a children's movie. No, white people are never the bad guys. But other than that, I loved the visuals and the slow build-up once Pocahontas is involved. Just Around the River Bend gives us a fun look into Pocahontas as a character, and gives her a bit more depth too. Listen With Your Heart is fine, I guess. It's got nice instrumentals, but it's kinda just a dumb song in general.
Listen with your heart, you will understand.
The real standouts are
Come rolling all the riches all around you, and for once never wonder what there were. We are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends.
honestly, I could gush about I know I just talked about how fun soundtracks are in general worse than compelling soundtracks, and Hercules is obviously a fun soundtrack, so what's it doing at number 2? Well, everyone, I'm sorry, but you guys are wrong. Hercules' soundtrack is nothing short of spectacular. The songs are all extremely catchy and fun, of course, but the really neat thing about Hercules is how the narrative and tone revolve around the songs. Pocahontas touched on this with Steady as a Beating Drum, but that was only one song. Every song in here sets the artificial Las Vegas tone Hercules captures so well, while advancing the narrative and exploring character motivations and... what else?
Just those 2 things.
The opening of this movie sets that idea up really well, actually. Think about how we're introduced to the Muses. It starts with this Morgan Freeman wannabe introducing us to the story of Hercules, but then the Muses say nope and fire him on the spot. This opening lets you know you're not about to be bored ever. And then they open with Gospel Truth, possibly the most sassy and stylish song in the entire movie. And there's a lot of them, don't get me wrong, but this one takes the cake for me. It's a really nice stylistic choice that makes the movie a lot more engaging. From there, I think you guys know the rest. Go the Distance is a powerful, beautiful, emotional gut puncher, and probably one of my favorite I Want songs. I don't know, this and Belle are pretty much tied. Any songs with the Muses are instant classics, obviously, with the best one probably being Zero to Hero, just on the merit of it being so zany and ridiculous. I Want Sam in Love is a great addition to my favorite character in the movie, Meg, plus it has the Muses, so points there. I could talk about every song and why it's compelling, but the point is, Hercules' soundtrack is unmatched. Well, almost unmatched. Before even thinking about what this list was gonna be, I knew what was gonna come out on top. The Hunchback of Notre Dame soundtrack is absolutely enchanting. Except a guy like you, no one likes that one, okay? But other than that, there truly isn't a bad or even good song. It's all fantastic. The tone of every single song doesn't lead into stupid kiddie humor or bad jokes. It's just great, intense, and cinematic. These songs truly remind me why I love film, with their gorgeous lyrics, striking cinematography, and rich background scores. God Help the Outcasts is so good. It reminds me a lot of Prince of Egypt's When You Believe, and while this isn't as good, I mean that's the best musical number of all time, this is still a fantastic portrayal of how selfless Esmeralda is. She literally only asks for the freedom of her people and nothing else. The same mindset is present in Out There. He simply wants one day with the people, while Frollo expertly uses guilt and identifies his weakness. He tells him that the people will fear him, and that he should just stay here. When Quasimodo refuses, Frollo tells him that he should be grateful. This is such a brilliant exchange, and it's one of Frollo's best attributes that no one ever seems to talk about. Heaven's Light and Hellfire are great contrasts between Frollo and Quasi as well. Frollo assumes that Esmeralda is simply a trophy to be won, and not an actual person who can make her own decisions, while Quasi barely even gets to consider that Esmeralda might care for him as a friend or a romantic partner. And this is especially apparent when you look at the elegant Heaven's Light chorus versus the aggressive Hellfire chorus.
Was ever meant for heaven's light.
Like fire, hellfire.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame has some of the best music in any musical ever made, and its soundtrack is not only the best of the Renaissance, but just the best in Disney period. I'm absolutely in love.